Hello, guys, and welcome to this new episode of the Unexplainable Podcast. There are stories that Italy keeps among its mountains and its forgotten villages, in the dark alleys of ancient cities. Stories that few know, but that, once heard, are never forgotten. This is not the usual collection of famous legends. No, today I will lead you on a dark journey into the darkest and most frightening corners of our country. 5 almost forgotten Italian legends, but still capable of scaring. Stories of spirits, curses, creatures hidden in the folds of time, ready to awaken. Get comfortable, put on some headphones if you can, and prepare to feel a shiver down your spine. So here are the 5 most terrifying Italian legends that they never told you in the dark. The journey through the silent woods and jagged ridges of Valsassina. Just outside Lecco lies one of northern Italy's most captivating and unsettling homes. Villa de Vecchi, a 19th century construction, today reduced to an architectural ghost, devoured by vegetation and time. But what really makes this villa famous is not only its decadent beauty, but the dark legend that has surrounded it for over a century. Many know it as the Red House, but for mystery lovers, it is simply the dwelling of the Black Lady. Built around 1854 at the behest of Count Felix de Vecchi, an officer of the army of the Kingdom of Sardinia and a fervent patriot of the Italian Risorgimento, the villa was meant to be a refuge for his family during the summer months. The project, ambitious for the time, envisaged an eclectic style building with Moorish influences, neo-Renaissance details, and even Oriental elements. Villa de Vecchi was equipped with extraordinary innovations. Among these were one of the first private telephone lines in Lombardy, a large mechanical organ, and a meticulously maintained rooftop garden. However, the serenity that the Count hoped to find within those walls never came. According to oral tradition, an irreparable tragedy struck the family. A few years after the inauguration of the residence, the Count's wife was found lifeless under strange circumstances. For some, she was poisoned. For others, a victim of an unsolved murder. The daughter, barely more than a teenager, disappeared without a trace. Some speak of kidnapping, others hypothesize a desperate escape, perhaps even a sacrifice, as often happens in cases of this kind. Felix de Vecchi was unable to withstand the immense pain and took his own life right inside the house, destroyed by loss and remorse. From that moment on, the villa fell into a state of abandonment and took on a disturbing appearance, almost as if time had stopped on the day of the tragedy. But not only that, soon, stories of strange sightings and unexplainable phenomena happening inside began to circulate. According to legend, every night, especially on the darkest evenings, when the wind whistles catrami and the clouds cover the moon, a female figure wrapped in a long black dress manifests herself among the rooms of the house. The Black Lady, in fact, silent, impalpable, with an empty gaze and lifeless eyes. She suddenly appears in the corridors of the villa, on the broken stairs, or looking out from the broken windows, as if waiting for someone or something. Some witnesses reported doors closing on their own, whispers in the dark, noises of footsteps of unknown origin, and a piano playing on its own, emitting a melancholic melody. It is said that this lullaby was the favorite song of the Count's wife, who used to play it every evening before the misfortune befell the family. Over the decades, Villa de Vecchi has become a destination for urban explorers, paranormal enthusiasts, horror photographers, and ghost hunter groups. Some report capturing mysterious shadows in their shots. Others swear they have recorded faint voices and female moans, often accompanied by unexplainable drops in temperature, even during the sweltering summer days. The legend has drawn numerous hypotheses about itself. There are those who believe that the Black Lady is the ghost of the Count's wife, condemned to wander for eternity in search of her lost daughter. Others suspect a dark past of the old family, perhaps linked to esoteric cults or secret societies of the time. And then there are the stories about seances that took place in the 70s, during which restless spirits would have been invoked. The main culprits, so it is said, of the long series of paranormal phenomena that would have occurred for decades. Some locals even remember alleged satanic rituals performed by groups that gathered among the ruins to challenge the forces of the supernatural. And it is here that a spontaneous question arises. Where does the legend end and where does reality begin? Skeptics talk about collective suggestion, rationally explainable phenomena, and the powerful effect that a ruined place can have on the human psyche. But for others, that villa hides something more, a secret that continues to live, hidden among the peeling walls, in the throbbing heart of a tragedy never forgotten. Even today, if you pass by the villa at sunset, it's not uncommon to see someone standing still in front of the rusty gate, with their gaze fixed on those empty windows that seem like eyes that observe, eyes that wait. And what if it was the Black Lady herself, who still today in the eternal silence of the Red House awaits the return of those who have forgotten her? The Devil's Bridge. Imagine an ancient stone bridge hidden among the folds of the Piedmontese hills, stretching like a snake over the icy and turbulent waters of the Stura di Lanzo stream. It's deep night, the moon is barely visible in the skies, covered by thick black clouds and a bank of fog. It rises slowly, wrapping everything in an unreal silence. But then something breaks that absolute tranquility. A sound of slow, heavy footsteps, even though there is no soul to live nearby. You are on the Devil's Bridge, a few kilometers from Turin, near the village of Lanza Torinese, a place steeped in mystery, crossed by dark energies, where it is said that spectral presences still linger, the memory of an ancient pact never forgotten. The legend of the Devil's Bridge has its roots. In the medieval era, when superstition was an integral part of daily life and natural phenomena were often interpreted as signs of the supernatural, the village of Lanzo was isolated from the rest of the valley due to the fury of the stream. For years, every attempt to build a bridge had failed. The works were interrupted by landslides, mysterious collapses, fatal accidents. It was said that the mountain itself did not want to allow that work. So, driven by desperation, the inhabitants were left with only one radical choice: to invoke the devil for help. Surprisingly, the devil not only accepted the invitation, but went beyond expectations. He also wanted to make a deal with the inhabitants that would finally give them a bridge, in exchange, however, for the soul of the first creature that crossed it. The villagers agreed, and the devil said he would complete the work in just one night. And so it was. At dawn, a solid and perfect arched bridge stood above the stream. It was at that moment that the inhabitants reconsidered the promise made, that he would have to sacrifice his soul for the good of the community. In the end, they concocted a trick. They made a stray dog cross the bridge. The devil had not specified that it had to be a human being, but the consequences of that deception would have been terrible. Lucifer, in fact, feeling mocked, roared with anger. It is said that his fury was such that it shook the earth, and to take revenge, he cast a terrible curse on the place. Anyone who crossed that bridge with a heart full of deceit or with evil intentions would bring misfortune upon themselves. And as was to be expected, from that day on, the misfortunes began. There are numerous dark tales associated with that place. Over the centuries, many episodes have been recounted. Peasants found dead on the pavement with no signs of violence, mules and horses that refused to go on, trembling and with wide eyes. In the 1930s, an engineer tasked with inspecting the structure inexplicably fell into the stream. His body was found days later, but no one could explain what had happened to him. The most famous case is from the 1970s. A young hiker was found at the foot of the bridge with no obvious injuries, but with a face distorted by terror. No fall, no impact. It was as if he had died of fear. And if that wasn't enough, the legend also speaks of a ghost. Some swear they've seen it on moonless nights. A tall, black, motionless figure standing in the middle of the bridge. Others tell of the Verudito. Unintelligible whispers, distant moans, the merciless sound of chains dragged over ancient stones. There are those who claim to have seen a black dog with red eyes, appeared out of nowhere and disappeared shortly after. According to tradition, that is the spirit of the sacrificed animal, condemned to wander for eternity as the guardian of deceit. But the Devil's Bridge is not just a haunted place. For some, it is also a portal. It is said that its arch shape represents a gateway between the world of the living and the world of shadows. That's why for centuries, it would have been the scene of propitiatory rites and tests of courage. Until recently, local youth tested their courage against the darkness with an age-old challenge: crossing the bridge alone at midnight without ever looking back. If you succeeded, it was said that the devil would respect you, leaving you in peace for the rest of your life. But if you turned around, you would see what no human being should ever see. Even today at the foot of the bridge, you can find mysterious objects: rusted iron crosses, small amulets, burnt-out candles, and handwritten notes with enigmatic phrases. "Please don't come tonight. Forgive me, I didn't mean to. I paid the price for challenging you." Some speak of secret rituals, others of simple superstitions, but no one can explain why such things are found in this place. Weekly fresh offerings. The Devil's Bridge is still there, standing for centuries, a silent observer of time and the souls that cross it. And you would cross it alone, even knowing that it is the work of Satan. The abandoned Asylum of Volterra. A few kilometers from the historic and medieval heart of Volterra, a picturesque Tuscan town, famous for its Etruscan walls and the timeless atmosphere, hides one of the most disturbing and forgotten buildings of our country. The former psychiatric hospital of Volterra, active for almost a century, precisely from 1888 until its final closure in 1978, this asylum still represents a tangible symbol of suffering, pain, and human torment today. A place where time seems to have stopped and the shadows of the past silently move among its abandoned halls. During its years of greatest splendor, the Volterra Psychiatric Hospital housed over 5,000 patients, many of whom were not admitted by choice but often against their will. The stories that emerge from this place tell of broken lives, locked within thick, cold walls, in long and endless corridors that seem to swallow any hope of freedom. The facility consisted of numerous pavilions, some of which were true invisible prisons, where treatments now considered inhumane were practiced, such as electroshock and other bloody therapies, often without the patient's consent. What makes the Volterra Asylum particularly disturbing are not only the stories of abuse, despair, and isolation, but also a legend and the mystery that have always surrounded this place. Within these walls, in fact, it is said, there exists a dark connection with parallel dimensions and presences that elude any rational explanation. Among the many inmates, one stands out for his singular obsession and the secret he left as an indelible legacy. A certain Fernando Nanetti, a man confined to that place like so many others, but who decided to transform the walls of the Ferry Pavilion into an immense work of writing. With a metal buckle he engraved on the wall a message over 180 meters long, a real secret chronicle. But these were not just words or scribbles. Those graffiti represent the account of a journey to otherworldly realms, encounters with alien entities and mysterious creatures, and of prophecies that seem to come from another reality, unknown and disturbing. While many critics and historians tend to interpret these signs as the product of Nanetti's madness, some anthropologist scholars passionate about the mystery suggest far more disturbing hypotheses. According to them, those symbols could be a form of mediumistic writing, a direct means of communication with dark and elusive dimensions, perhaps even a channel towards the supernatural. The mystery around this enigmatic alphabet remains unresolved to this day, and perhaps it's better that way, as the unknown maintains its power of fascination and its ability to instill fear. Since the asylum was closed and progressively abandoned, its structures have slowly crumbled. But what has never faded is the unsettling aura that envelops the entire complex. Those who have dared to approach tell stories on the edge of reality. Indistinct voices echoing in the empty corridors, agonizing moans rising in the silent night, doors slamming for no apparent reason, as if the walls still held the presence of those who were forced to live there, tormented by unspeakable suffering. One of the most frightening aspects of this place is the shadows that, according to witnesses, appear especially in the most abandoned areas of the complex. There are talks of still and indistinct figures, ethereal presences, that seem to float or linger in front of the abandoned cells, but also in broad daylight. These figures seem trapped in an endless limbo, souls imprisoned in time and space, unable to find peace. The former asylum of Volterra, therefore, is not simply a building fallen into ruin, but a tangible nightmare that walks on the thin boundaries between reality and madness. It's a place where the past seems to have clung tightly, a stage where pain, despair, and mystery intertwine in a dark, endless dance. Visiting that place means immersing oneself in an atmosphere charged with spectral memories, where every stone tells a story of broken lives and secrets never revealed. Whether it's just a legend or, at least in part, we're talking about a terrifying reality, it doesn't matter much. That place is not just an abandoned building, it's an enigma. A place where mystery is breathed in deeply and the line between fantasy and reality becomes very thin, almost imperceptible. The Girl with Black Eyes by Pentedattilo. In Calabria, there's a place forgotten by time, suspended between myth and reality, wrapped in an aura that seems to belong more to the dream than to the waking state. The ghost town of Pentadaktilos. Located on a cliff that resembles the shape of a gigantic petrified hand, from which it takes its name. Derived from the Greek Pentadaktilos, meaning 5 fingers. This ancient village, now uninhabited, is the setting for one of the darkest and most disturbing legends of southern Italy. Exploring the ruins of Pentadaktilos is a nearly mystical experience. The stone houses, now swallowed by vegetation and time, seem to still emit the sighs of those who once lived there. The wind whispers through the cracks in the walls, carrying echoes of forgotten stories. There are those who swear they perceive a subtle presence, a melancholic energy that penetrates the bones when in Zone E. In this scenario, laden with symbolism and mystery, there is talk of an apparition that has left an indelible imprint in the memory of those who have encountered it. A silent little girl with long raven hair and completely black eyes without sclera, without iris, without pupil, just 2 deep orbits, like windows open onto nothingness. A spectral figure that, according to testimonies, appears among the ruins, especially on windy nights near the old church of San Pietro, or along the worn stairs that once connected the houses to each other. The stories of those who had the courage to stay around until late at night speak of a faint voice, similar to a subdued cry, and of a sudden, unnatural chill that seems to penetrate the soul. Some witnesses describe the feeling of being watched by something ancient, unfathomable, as if the place itself had come to life and was peering into them. But who is this girl with the black eyes, really? Well, it's soon said. According to oral tradition, her spirit could be linked to one of the bloodiest pages of local history, the massacre of the Alberti, which occurred in 1686. That year, in a Shakespearean tragedy-like atmosphere, Bernardino Abenavoli, a representative of one of the most influential noble families in the area, stormed the castle of the rival Alberti family, massacring almost all of its members. The cause? An explosive mix of forbidden love, wounded pride, and thirst for revenge. Bernardino was allegedly in love with Antonietta Alberti, who was betrothed to another nobleman. The rejection was too much to bear, so blinded by jealousy and anger for the offense suffered, he decided to exterminate the family of the woman he loved. Among the victims, according to one version of the legend, there would have been a little girl, perhaps the last descendant of the Alberti, hidden in terror in the dungeons of the castle. She would have died there, slowly between hunger and fear, forgotten by everyone. And her spirit, never pacified, would continue to wander among those stones in search of justice. Anyway, there are also other interpretations of the story. According to some folklore scholars, the girl may not be tied to a specific historical event, but rather represent a collective emanation of the pain of the place. Pentadaktilos was hit by devastating earthquakes multiple times, including one in 1783 that caused numerous casualties and contributed to the village's gradual abandonment. And from centuries of feuds, abuses, and violence, the figure of the girl with black eyes from this perspective would be an archaic symbol, an archetype of violated innocence, of unprocessed grief. There is also the hypothesis that it is simply a modern urban legend, born during the 20th century, when tourism began to approach these forgotten places. In this view, the story of the girl would serve to give a face and a voice to the spectral silence that envelops Pentadaktilos, amplifying its sinister charm. But one question remains. The testimonies of paranormal phenomena and the presence of this tormented spirit in the place always tend to coincide. How to justify converging stories from people who didn't know each other, who knew nothing about the legend, and who, once they returned from their excursions among the ruins, wrote about the same apparition in similar words. Perhaps it's self-suggestion fueled by the place, or maybe there really is something there trying to make contact with the living, because for no reason in the world can it be forgotten. And one thing is certain, whoever claims to have crossed the gaze of the girl with black eyes has never been able to forget it. The Witch of Triora. There is a village perched among the harsh Ligurian mountains, suspended between heaven and earth, perpetually immersed in the fog and silence of ancient nature. It's a place that seems suspended in time, wrapped in an unreal atmosphere, almost dreamlike, as if it had been directly carved from a nightmare. Here the stones of the houses seem to whisper forgotten words. Every alley wanes like a labyrinth of the soul, and the echo of the past resonates with every step. The name of this place still evokes fear and fascination today. Triora, in the province of Imperia, a small town with a charming and fairy tale appearance, but known throughout Italy and even abroad as the Italian Salem. The dark Safama has its roots in a tragic and more than real period. It all started in 1587 during one of the most difficult seasons the village had ever faced. The mountains were arid, the rains scarce, and the harvest was almost entirely destroyed. The livestock began to die, and the population, driven by hunger, desperation, and the ancestral need to find a rational explanation for this series of misfortunes, began to look for a scapegoat. Obviously, as often happens in times of crisis, the gaze fell on the weakest, on the different ones. The ones accused were the single women, the herbalists, the midwives, the healers, the women who knew about plants and the human body. In short, those considered strange, isolated from society. Within a few weeks, one of the most ferocious and documented witch hunts in Italian history erupted in Triora. The local authorities, under pressure from the people and with the approval of the Inquisition, began a long series of arrests. About 30 women were accused of practicing witchcraft, performing satanic rites, summoning the devil, and participating in nocturnal Sabbaths. The testimonies collected speak of the accused transforming into black cats. It was said that they flew in the skies riding brooms or demons, and that they were able to cause famines and diseases with a simple glance. The defendants were subjected to brutal interrogations, locked up in damp underground cells, often without food or light. They were tortured with hot irons, ropes, and constriction devices. Confessions, in most cases, were extracted under unspeakable physical suffering. Some died in prison, others were made to disappear, even erased from official records. Fear had taken over the village, and no one stood up to defend them. They had become living symbols of evil, of something that needed to be exorcised, eliminated. But the legend, as often happens, surpasses the documented reality. In fact, it is said that one of those women managed to escape capture, a mysterious figure described as tall with long raven hair, skin as pale as marble, and 2 obsidian black eyes, capable of enchanting and terrifying anyone who looked at her. It is said that just before the guards could arrest her, she invoked ancestral spirits, disappearing into thin air and taking refuge in the dark woods that surround the country. Since then, numerous witnesses swear they have caught a glimpse of her among the trees at twilight, a female figure, wrapped in a cloak walking without leaving footprints, accompanied by a pungent smell of sulfur and a sudden chill that penetrates the bones. Some say that she never actually died, that her body was transformed into a spirit through an ancient spell, and that she still lives among the ruins of Triora Castle, silently observing every new visitor, waiting for the right moment to reveal herself. Today, Triora is much more than a medieval village. It's a true capital of mystery. It attracts thousands of visitors each year who are passionate about history, occultism, and folklore. Its dark stone houses, narrow, winding streets, ancient fountains, and breathtaking views of the Ligurian valleys make up a fascinating and sinister picture. In the heart of the village is the Ethnographic and Witchcraft Museum, which houses original objects from the era such as amulets, medicinal herbs, torture instruments, trial records, and Inquisition documents. A journey into the dark heart of an era when fear had the power to condemn without evidence. But it's not just a museum that keeps the memory alive. Every year, especially in the fall and around Halloween, Triora transforms. The village hosts esoteric-themed events, historical reenactments, occult markets, traveling theater performances, and even seminars on herbalism and natural magic, drawing scholars, curious individuals, and modern witches from every corner of Europe. The very inhabitants of the country have a complex relationship with this legacy. There are those who would like to leave everything behind, forget that cumbersome label of witch village. But there are also those who believe that a force that once ruled is not just history, but an active place, a crossroads of ancient energies and invisible presences. Some swear they hear whispers in the night, others claim to see strange lights in the woods. And there are those who maintain that the witch, who escaped in 1587, has never stopped walking among those stones. This is Triora, a place where perhaps an immortal witch is just waiting for the right moment. And so today, we have come to the end of this journey through the most unsettling folds of Italian folklore. We have listened to forgotten stories, whispered softly near a fireplace, passed down in the alleys of ancient villages where time seems to have stopped. But the real question is, are we sure these are just legends? Or was there something more behind these beliefs? Yes, because, as we have seen, each of these tales has its roots in historical facts that really happened. So where is the line that separates chronicle from fantasy? And now, as always, I leave the floor to you. Which legend struck you the most? Was there a passage that gave you chills? But most importantly, would you like me to dedicate another episode of the podcast to delve deeper into some of these stories? And if so, which ones? Let me know in a comment. The Unexplainable podcast, an original format by Luca Perella, features sound design from Matteo D'Alessandro. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a like, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, or share it with your friends. Goodbye, and see you at the next appointment with the Unexplainable. Thanks to everyone